I appreciate everybody coming out tonight. I know it's, for somebody it's a far drive, somebody it's just right here, but taking time out of your schedule to do this. What I'm going to do is kind of tell you how we got here. If you haven't had a chance, you can see our map on the wall over there. Is it better if I talk like this or talk with this? Hands up if I talk like that. Okay. Like that? Okay. As you can tell, I don't do this all the time, so. So basically, how we got here is, I'm from the area. I actually grew up in Chattanooga. I was born, and then my family has deep historical ties to the north end of the county. When I moved back to Chattanooga with my family in 2001, I could kind of see what was happening in the community and the growth of Chattanooga. If you know where the city of Chattanooga, the city limits used to be in Chattanooga, let's say 10 years ago, I was having a conversation this week with somebody, and they were joking about it, but in reality they were serious, that Chattanooga has just stopped putting the sign, the city limit sign in the ground. They just put it on wheels so they can just roll it down the interstate to the next exit. But we've seen the Chattanooga sign move 3 times. So in basically around 2003, there was this annexation that happened along the interstate moving north. And we could tell with the advent of Enterprise South and all these other new developments that we were in the stage to start growing. Well, what happened is for 170 years in the state of Tennessee, the way that cities were incorporated remained the same. But because they couldn't take over new areas easily because they had to go to a vote or had to go to the citizens, and the citizens could challenge it and go to a jury to get it turned down, they changed the law of the state of Tennessee in 1998. And then that law went into effect in 2001 and was executed in 2003. And you'll hear in these things called the urban growth plan. And these urban growth plans basically define boundaries. Well, that law was put into effect by the Tennessee Municipal League and metro governments because they wanted to figure out a way to take over rural areas without having much challenge to it. So the way the new law reads is that they can say we're going to annex an area as long as it's in their growth plan, a city's growth plan. They can then take over that area. The citizen has 30 days to challenge that ruling after the second reading, but it goes to one judge. And that one judge can say yay or nay if that land is taken over. And 9 times out of 10, it's gone. So it used to be a jury, but they don't do that. They want to have the fastest way to move that plan forward. So when we looked to see what was going on, and we knew there used to be a 20-year plan that basically said, there was a big annexation effort in 2003 where the city of Chattanooga moved their urban growth boundaries to along Hunter Road and Enterprise South to include all the Volkswagen and Amazon properties. But the only thing they did is they did this monstrosity annexation up the interstate for about 2 miles just to grab the industrial properties along Ooltewah, which in the state size is actually illegal. But they weren't going to grab the residents like Mill Run or the other properties further north. Now, the current administration, since the 2003-2005 annexations completed, the current administration realizes that we're growing, and we're growing very fast. With Volkswagen here, Amazon, and Fokker up the road, we've got a lot of things going down the pipe. And it was even said as recent that 10 to 15 companies a day call the mayor's offices asking them to move to Chattanooga or talk about developing here. What's also relative is the land at Enterprise South, and I was told by the chamber, is totally optioned out. So all that volunteer ammunition land is optioned out by Amazon and Volkswagen. So there's no more development going in there because they've got that. So they're looking for new land in the future to do this development. They're also, TDOT has approved a new ramp off of the mountain, off White Oak Mountain, where it crosses between Ooltewah, Georgetown, and Ringgold Road. They're going to open that ramp up right there. There's also, we know about a new bridge that's going to be going over the river from Harrison to Soddy Daisy. And then, there's been discussions about connecting the valley by some county commissioners to the Corridor J around the loop. So with all these new developments coming, the concern was that the city of Chattanooga didn't best represent the residents in this area, or in the whole area of Ooltewah, Georgetown, Harrison, and Birchwood. And because of that, if you look at what's happened further south, the city of Chattanooga right now has 13 lawsuits against them for forced annexation by HCRAA, Hamilton County Citizens Against Annexation. And the citizens for Ooltewah Citizens for Responsible Growth also are in the challenging phases with them. And so if we look at what's happened in the last year, now we're kind of getting up to present, a year ago, there was a piece of property on Hunter Road where a developer wanted to come in and build 300 apartment complexes. These apartment complexes, the county commissioner said, no, you can't do that here. The density, the safety, you can't do it. So they worked a deal with the city to basically flip that property into the city. And the developer was told that if you flip it into the city, you won't have any problems because the residents won't drive downtown to fight it. Well, they had over 100 people at every single reading coming downtown to fight it. And it was the last hour that it finally got turned down, that they couldn't build those homes there. But that's just an example of how the Chattanooga is doing zoning over 20 miles away, and up in this area, it could be as far as 40 miles away from the center of the community. So when we looked at this, we said we would like to have more local government, more local planning in our area. But the way the laws are written in the state of Tennessee, we can't just tell the city of Chattanooga, go away. You can't take our land. So the only recourse we have is incorporating a new city. And the laws in Tennessee, because of that urban growth stuff that went in, they also put new restrictions on cities. One of the restrictions is, if you're over 100,000 residents in your city, you can't incorporate a new city within 5 miles of the old city. If you're under 100,000, you can't incorporate within 3 miles. So if you look at our map, you see those radial bands? So the radial bands indicate the 3 miles and 5 mile distances from Chattanooga, Lakeside, and Soddy Daisy. So you'll see an area on the right. We had a resident contact today. There's an area on the right up there that's a little pocket. And that little pocket basically is an area that, because it's close to Lakeside, it can't be in the initial incorporation. But if you look at it naturally, if the city was incorporated, naturally that land would fall into the city of Hamilton after the incorporation. So what we did is we took a two-phase approach. We said, first, we need to incorporate a new city. That will prevent Chattanooga from being able to annex any of the area because it's a new city and it's basically the residents of that city. Two, we want to self-annex into property from the current boundaries all the way south down to the existing city of Chattanooga limit. So that would include Harrison, Birchwood, Ooltewah, and Georgetown. But one of the things we want to do is none of us want more government, including myself. I moved to the county years ago and I like living in the county, I like the quality of life. But there are some mandates defined by the state of Tennessee. Originally we thought, oh, we can create a new city and just collect sales tax. And that's all we have to worry about. Nobody pays any more property taxes. The state says, not so fast. What they said is that because of the law change, that the county gets to collect the property taxes for the first 15 years. Gets to collect the sales taxes for the first 15 years of a new city incorporation. So we don't have access to those sales tax. Okay, that's fine. I didn't know if the reverb was too much. That's fine with me. I talk loud too. So, so basically, what we found is that the city, when they incorporate, this is like going to church. Everybody's snugging. So, what we found is that when the city incorporates, the city by state law has to collect sales tax. And by state law, we have to address a preset set of services, and that's the plans you have there. So the services include fire, police, garbage, roads, and one other one. I can't remember. There's one more on there, I think. And then there's above and beyond services like pet control, zoning and planning, and all that stuff. And those are optional services the taxpayers can decide if they want to do. So what we did is we said, when we incorporate, if we can keep the city as flat as possible by basically removing all of the services we don't need and using the services we already have. So most of the residents in the county are happy with the sheriff's department. So what we did is we took a model like Lakeside and Walden, where we subcontract to the sheriff's department a set number of officers to be the police for our given area. What that does, that takes those officers off their books and puts them on our books for managing this area. And those are dedicated. The flip side is the sheriffs, just their requirements in general, they still have to service the area. Even if there's not enough officers, they still have to provide additional resources to the area, so that we actually have the ability to have more officers in the area if we needed them. The fire service, what we did there is today, most people have the Highway 58 Fire Department. And the Highway 58 Fire Department is a volunteer service, which means that they send out letters, and some people, it's hit or miss if you get their letters or not, but it's basically you pay a fee, like a $100 fee per year to have fire coverage. It doesn't mean if you don't pay the fee, they won't come to your house and put the fire out. They will do that, that's their policy, but you may get a bill at the end of the day for putting that fire out. So what we're saying in the city of Hamilton is that any resident in the city of Hamilton, we will pay the fees for all the residents in the city. So the fire service is just covered. What that does for Highway 58, that gives them a stable budget. Instead of having to go out and basically solicit to get donations, they now have a stable budget. With that, they can turn around and make some adjustments to their staffing and manpower to also raise their fire codes, which helps our insurance rates go down. So that's one of the options. The garbage service, we said we don't want to support any garbage. We don't need golden garbage cans. It doesn't do anything for us. So what we're doing is we're letting the 3 private companies that already do garbage still maintain and do the garbage. The roads, we have to maintain the roads in the new city. And in this area that's identified, we have 90 miles of roads that we have to cover. The state has 60 miles of road, and there's 20 miles of private roads. So all of those need to be covered from the services plan. But most everything else, we're trying to remain as flat and as small as possible. When we do the charter for the city, because we're going to define a charter, we'd like to put term limits on the mayor, put term limits on the city council, and then also put a provision in there that you can't jump between mayor and city council without a term off. And the goal is to keep the government very small. So you can't just sit there and basically build an empire from our city. So at the end of the day, we're trying to still maintain our quality of life, but still protect ourselves for the future, for being able to incorporate so the city of Chattanooga doesn't absorb this area. And let me tell you, they want to do this area. You may have seen, if you haven't looked at our website or looked at our Facebook page, we put everything out there. We want everybody to read it for themselves. But in the last year, at the end of last year, the mayor of Chattanooga said, we want to annex as far as we can go. We just want to take it all. But then when we had a meeting at the Collegeville Chamber of Commerce, he said, no, we don't want to go north of Mayhem Gap Road now. So they do want this area out here. They're still looking for another enterprise area. The other thing is, the day after the mayor made the comment that he wanted to annex all the way to the Bradley County line, the mayor of Cleveland said, we want to annex all the way to the Hamilton County line. So they want to come this way. Cities in the state of Tennessee, well, in most states, are not bound by county lines. So they can actually go over the county lines in either direction. So Cleveland could come over the county line, Chattanooga could go over the Bradley County line. So that's something most people don't know. The other thing is, the reason the timing is so sensitive is because of those boundaries that we have to contend with, and the timing for when we can actually incorporate. If Cleveland moves their borders to the Bradley County line, that now takes that limit and moves it in 4 miles. So we also have to have over 1,500 residents in an area in order to incorporate a city. So if you look at that map and you move it 3 miles this way, you get a little sliver down through there, and you might not make the density to incorporate, and at that point you've lost all options. So it's really at a point where we're kind of between a rock and a hard place on what we want to do. The view that has always been out here even as a kid was do nothing, and you don't have to worry about it. Chattanooga is way down there. They'll never come out this way. I hate to tell you, but that's kind of gone. Like I said, they moved that city limit sign 3 times in the last 9 years. So it used to be down below Hamilton Place, then it moved to Bonnie Oaks, then it moved to the top of the hill, and then now it's north of Ooltewah.
They've got it on wheels.
That's what I said. It's got it on wheels, and they just got a guy who walks down there. And with the new announcement of Snow Hill Elementary School, which is even further north of Ooltewah-Georgetown crossover, there's going to be a brand new school there that's moving out towards Mayhem Gap. So it's not going to be long before they start moving that up this way. So that's kind of how we got here. That's why, as the citizens, a number of members on the board from EMTs, I mean, just all walks of life from all the different areas in the county, basically said that if we don't do something ourselves, and we really took the mayor's office by surprise according to some of the media groups. They said that they didn't expect the citizens to stand up and fight them. They figured that it would just be a slam dunk to extend the urban growth boundary and just be able to start annexing in out here. So, you know, it's really up to us on what we want to do as a community. And what we're asking for your help on is to basically sign the petition, have all your friends and families, church members, everybody sign the petition. And what that does, that doesn't make a city. That just puts it on the ballot in November so that the residents can then go and vote if they want to incorporate a city. And then you can do all the research yourself. You can go look at our websites. We link to everything out there so everybody can go see exactly, you know, for themselves the issues that we're up against. So at this point, any questions? We can open them up. Yes, sir.
Who's going to maintain the schools?
So the schools are still...
This school and probably probably two of the older schools in Hamilton County.
Right, so the schools are still maintained by the county. So the county, just like the city of Chattanooga, there's still schools that are maintained by the county. Now what the county gets out of the deal is they still have their county tax. But some of the taxes we're collecting, you know, like we're paying for additional services for the fire and sheriff and things like that. So they're going to get a little bit more money back on their side. So we can ask our county officials to apply that towards schools and stuff, like they're doing with Snow Hill Elementary. It's the same kind of thing. The old Snow Hill was built, or Ooltewah Elementary was built years ago, and now they're working on building a new one.
My question, I've been watching this quite a bit for the past 15, 20 years.
Mm-hmm. And we've got some veterans here that can answer any 15, 20-year questions.
I'd like to see you again. Thank you. Appreciate you. My question really revolves around the city of Hamilton. Okay. I've watched this grow and grow and grow and grow. I've lived in Chattanooga all my life. My family's been here for 114 years.
Long as mine.
Long time.
Yeah.
And I agree with you 100% because I've watched it happen. And you are correct about all the Tennessee state laws. This is something that they're going to do, whether we like it or not. Our hands are tied, except for the point of doing this right here. Now my question, Highway 58 Fire Department has been on for, I'd say, probably 14, 15 years.
Which station are you at?
I was fire prevention captain. I covered all 113 square miles.
Okay. I just talked to Dude tonight, and I was hoping he would be here, but he had fire training, so.
I've been in this school 5 times. I was fire prevention.
Okay.
Okay, my question is now, where I live is located off of Birchwood Pike. It's Pitcher Place Lane. I don't know anybody in here that's got private, you live on a private road. 911 come through a couple of years ago, and they said, okay, we can't find you anymore, so now we're going to give you a new address. And my mail is still showing up at Fort Bragg where my dog lives. Okay? That's okay. But what my point is, okay, the city of Hamilton, I understand, as time goes on, the taxes are going to have to increase because we're going to have growth. There's people, it's proven right now from up north, this is where people want to retire. That's a fact. My question is, okay, what is the growth rate of the taxes? Okay?
Yeah, and that's a good question. So one of the things we talked about in the city charter is we can put in there provisions to prevent the growth rate. Right. Getting an administrator. What I recommend is that every citizen get involved in their government, their planning. In the city of Hamilton, your vote would be 1 in 17,000 approximately. In the city of Chattanooga, it would be 1 in 170,000+. So what we can do is we can put trips in there, you know, saying that you can't have a tax rate increase greater than like the cost of living or something like that. What we have done in the budget is we started off at 1.5% per $100 was the budget. After we did a 5-year plan looking at all the groups, getting contracts from various groups, so we looked at their real numbers, and then actually working with 2 other cities and their financial planners saying, okay, we've thought of this, you know, what do we not think of? You know, we even added an emergency fund in there just because of what happened in Appleton last year, thinking, you know, we want to be able to at least have the FEMA caps to cover one disaster, and if another one happened right after it, we would still have enough to cover it. So we put a budget in there to cover that, not even thinking that we would have another disaster, you know, this year. I mean, of the magnitude we had last year. I mean, almost the magnitude. But so We planned on there, so the numbers you see are strictly at this point tied to property taxes. There are like, I think, 5 other taxes that we could collect today that the state or the county are taking, that we can actually take those back as a city that we're not even putting in the budget. So there's other avenues that we can leverage as a city before we even go back to the taxpayers to get any more money or anything like that. And even then, I would say it goes up for a vote. It's not, there's a thing, it's called home rule. In a number of states, I think a number of cities in the state, like 28 of them, have implemented home rule. And home rule, just plainly written, doesn't have any provisions to prevent tax increases. So unless the citizens are paying attention, unless you add that provision in there for tax increases, a local home rule territory, like East Ridge is a home rule territory, they can actually bump your taxes up without going to the voters at all and have no recourse from the state or anything else. So we're not looking at a home rule city at this point. We're just looking at a very thin, we're looking at the same way we've got our county. We're providing the services we have to by minimum by the state.
Okay, and pardon me, y'all, this is a two-part question.
Sure.
And please, I'm not voting for the vote. Okay, I've noticed over here you've got Public Works and Roads, $854,000.
Right.
And I forgot the miles you said that was.
90 miles.
90 miles of private road?
No, 90 miles of public roads.
Okay, what about private road?
20 miles of private roads.
The reason why I'm asking that is because I know some of us might live on a private road. Right now where I live, there's a 25-foot easement going up. There's 7 houses lives on that road. I've been fighting since 1991 with the Hampton County Commission. In fact, they told me not to come back. But the problem is back when all this was getting split up, was trying to get the road taken over by the county, where a 20-ton fire truck, because I was an engineer also, a 20-ton fire truck or even an ambulance or a police car could get up that driveway.
Yeah.
Now, just this past week, we had a man die behind me. They had to carry him out in a pickup truck.
Because of the roads?
Because of the road.
Well, who owns the road?
Actually, everybody does that owns the property. It's a 25-foot easement that was settled in 1969.
Because a lot of the neighborhoods on Snow Hill Road started
that's
out.
not loaded full of buckshot. What I'm trying to say is, the private roads we got, if we vote this in, and I hope everybody does, sees what's going to happen. If we vote this in, will the city of Hamilton County be able to do that?
Well, that's some of the stuff that we'll have to set up a roads department and all that kind of stuff, or private citizen. Like, we're looking at some of the other neighboring cities, but those are some questions that actually came up from some of our county commissioners. Like, listen, the first thing people are going to ask for is, hey, I got a private road and I want it public.
Sure, Mr. Hutter.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
No problem. Yeah, but along those lines, there are some expenses that will come out. Like I was going to say, along Snow Hill Road, there's a number of communities that all started off as private roads, and they converted them to public roads when the road service took those roads over. That's why I was curious, the reason why the roads were still private or not, if they gave the roads or not. Then there was something else I want to tell you, is the first year that taxes are collected, the state law requires that we can't get access to those taxes. They hold them in escrow, and then they match whatever's collected for the first year, and then we start getting the taxes the following year. So what we have to do is we have to go out and get bonds the first year to cover operations of the government. So the first year will be lean because we don't have any credit history. So you know how banking and lending is in these days of time. So the bonds will be a little bit trickier, at least for the first year. So like our services may expand over time, and we had some discussions. We said, well, can we do graduated road takeover? Like, can we take over 20% of the roads a year or 10% of the roads a year, until we reach the point where we get our sales tax, or something like that, just working with the county and having some kind of balance there, because we are the first new city that would be incorporated in the state of Tennessee in anybody's memory in 15 years. So they don't know of any city that's been done, and a lot of them can't even find any city. When we asked for a petition from the Municipal League and all these other groups, nobody even had a petition. They didn't even know what a petition looked like. They just knew the code of what should be in a petition, but nobody could say that this is the petition. Yes, sir.
How many signatures do you need to get on the ballot? How many do you have, and what's the deadline?
A lot of questions. So what we got is we need at least 30. Oh, the question is, how many signatures do we need? What's the deadline, and how many do we have? Maybe not in that order, but something like that. So we need at least 3,500 signatures. We're trying to go from 4,000 to 5,000 signatures, just so we have plenty of signatures. What we have done is we've told anybody from Hunter Road, Oldley Highway north to sign. The only people that count for the petition, though, are from Mahan Gap to the county line north, and from the river to the county line east. So that only counts for the incorporation. The reason we've said people south to Hunter Road and Oldley Highway is that once this happens, we now have a pool of people we can go to for self-annexation and bring them in down Highway 58, Snow Hill Road, Mahan Gap Road, all the different roads heading south. So the further we push our line south, the less, if Chattanooga ever gets the urban growth boundary opened up again, the less area they have to negotiate with to come into.
Chris?
So, yes, who said that?
Chris, could you cover a little more about the self-annexation part?
Yeah,
How many do we have?
Yeah, so right now we've got over 1,000 that we know, but we're going through and vetting each one right now. So we have some petitions that have to be re-signed. Either they didn't follow the directions. They have to be exactly like the state. I mean, they're looking for any legal challenge they can to throw them out. This petition is different than any other petition in the state, including the recall effort downtown. This petition, we basically have until September 1st to get all of our numbers. We're trying to get them all in the first quarter. We're working as fast as we can to get them all, so then we're just sitting on it. And then it's up to us to pull the trigger. So once we have all the vetted petitions, we then go to the election commission and we say, here they are. And then they have 20 days to certify those petitions. And then within 30 to 45 days, they have to have an election. So we have to look at which election we want to be in. Do we want to be in August or do we want to be in November? Well, in our case, we'd like to be in November because that's going to have the biggest turnouts at the polls, and we want to get the most coverage we have. But the only people that are going to be affected by voting on this are the ones that are in the initial incorporation area in yellow. They're the ones that are going to make the decision on the city of Hamilton.
Can you speak again about the phasing in, about when we're talking about the original incorporation and the phasing in of the additional ones, because I couldn't hear you.
Yep. So, and that's what he was talking about, the self-annex. So phase one is what we're calling it, is the yellow area. Phase two is the people that are contiguous from that area south can have the option to self-annex their property. As long as we contiguously keep them connected, we can move that line further down. So we're working with large parcel property owners, land trusts, people like that. So day two, once the city's incorporated, those individuals can say, okay, I want to be part of Hamilton, I want to be part of Hamilton. In the state law, though, a new city can't annex another area for 10 years. So we can't say, okay, we're going to annex your area.
So how would that work, and how would you?
But a private landowner can choose to come into the city.
Or a neighborhood association.
Or a neighborhood association. That's what we're trying to work with all the HOAs. So a whole homeowners organization like Heron Bay or Mill Run or Hampton Creek or whatever, they can say, our whole neighborhood's going to come into the city. Now, we've got huge parcels of land that we're moving down. You know, we're working with like some of the forestry groups and some other stuff, you know, basically trying to figure out the further we can push that line in the multiple areas, if that plan ever reopens again, then it's moved so far south, you know, it's just apparent that everything in the spaces is going to be in Hamilton, and everything south, that's negotiated, you know, potentially. And to open an urban growth boundary, and Mike, correct me if I'm wrong on this one, to open an urban growth boundary, last time they opened it, it was like, I think 30 people, and it took them 2.5 years to finally agree on who got what pieces of land in the boundary. Now, one of the things that we would also like to see change at the state level is annexation in general, so that citizens have a right to vote to be part of a city versus being told you're going to be part of the city. And that was taken away in 1998. Yes, sir.
Signing this petition is only saying we want to get a vote of the people.
That's exactly what it is. That's just, it doesn't incorporate a city. It just says, I want it on the ballot. So when we go to the polls, there's an option there that says, do you want the new city of Hamilton? Yes. Once you choose to incorporate a new city, then we're going to have another election. And what happens between the time we incorporate and the next election is we find out who wants to run for mayor, who wants to run for city council, and we're looking at initially 3 council seats, one for Birchwood, Georgetown, and a tiebreaker. And then if Udawan and Harrison come in, then eventually will be 2 more, so it'll always be an odd number for the city councils. The mayor will also be on the ballot, and then the city charter. So when we actually have the next election, that's when you'll actually elect the city officials. Once those officials are elected, then they'll call an order of business, and at that point, the city's ready to go, and phase 2 can start, even day 2.
This is a big area. Where's the actual city?
Well, the city seat? Well, that's where we got to decide. Okay. Well, one of the areas we talked about is we said we'd like to keep the city, this is the citizens' choice. I mean, we're just kind of the catalyst moving it along, but, as a community, we need to decide where we want the city seat. Ideally, I would say closer to the interstate, so it keeps all the development down in that specific area. But some people may they may want it on Mayhem Gap Road. It just depends on where the community decides. Initially, I would say we don't have any buildings or any location. We're probably just going to lease space for the city to kind of get it started and then see where we want to put things. But, the whole point is to try to keep the infrastructure as small as possible, keeping it flat as possible, too.
That phrase that you just used, keeping it as flat as possible, I think everybody in here fully understands that when government happens, lunacy descends.
Yeah, and that's where our charter comes in, and we need to make sure our charter is I want to say, ironclad, non-ambiguous.
So my question to you is, we are, as she said, we are a rural group of people.
Yep.
And if it's going to be a flat, how invasive is it going to be? Are we going to have to diaper our cows?
No.
I mean, that's ridiculous, but you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah, we got to be concerned about the methane fallout from the cattle.
Yeah, but you understand we are a rural group.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Okay, so let me
know we're going to be left alone. Is that going to be in the tenets of the city?
And let me compare apples with oranges here, okay? So if we don't do anything, let's just say the city of Hamilton, you guys go, this really doesn't interest me. I want to be left alone, leave me alone. We don't do anything. City of Chattanooga comes in, and they annex the property, they move it north. The other thing I need to mention is that if we take this to the poll and we vote and it fails, we can't do anything for 4 years. The state has written that in there, we can't retry it, and if we do, we have to start back at square one. We have to go out and get the first petition, go through the whole process again. So just keep that in the back of your mind.
Can the city come on in the meantime?
The city can do whatever they want in the meantime. They can look at it and go, great, 4 years, nobody can find us, let's go.
Don't they have to abide by their borders?
The urban growth boundary. So they have to, what they would have to do is reopen the urban growth boundary. Now, they tried in December, and we fought them every step of the way. That's what I'm saying. They didn't expect to have the fight that they had coming into this. And they've since said they want to reopen it again. The thing about the urban growth boundaries is that any mayor can reopen the urban growth boundaries. And there's no time limit to say that the mayor can't request to reopen it again. So they can't say, I open it today, you can't ask for that request another 3 years. They may come back next month, and that was discussed that the mayor of Chattanooga was out of town. He goes, well, I wasn't here, so I want to reopen it again. So depending on who's in administration, they can keep reopening it until they either wear people down or whatever. Or they change the law at the state, which means that they don't have to worry about reopening it, they can just go ahead and annex. So there's a number of options they potentially have available. What we want to do is, if we don't do anything, and we let the city of Chattanooga just do what they want to do, you're looking at a 2.25% tax increase on your property on top of your county taxes. You're looking at new fees on all your vehicles. They have wheel taxes on everything. You're looking at registrations for all your pets. You're looking at stormwater fees that are outrageous. So if you have any property with barns or churches, like just to give you an example, Bayside Baptist was looking, I think originally at a $40,000 stormwater fee for the parking lot. They got it down to $12,000. This is a donations-based church. It's not a business, okay? And all the churches are hit with these stormwater fees because Chattanooga is trying to replace their sewer system, but they're using the residents in the rural areas and stuff to pay for that stuff for them. So basically, all of these things incur. On top of that, you were asking about codes. I would recommend, if you want to have some fun reading, go read the Chattanooga codes. There are codes in there from the 1800s, and one of them is, you can't say them's are fighting words. That's actually in the codes. But there's over hundreds of codes that would automatically be imposed on the residents in the unincorporated area overnight if the city of Chattanooga comes in. Now, with the city of Hamilton, we would have to define our codes and say, okay, we believe that this is a code that we need to address, or this is a code. We don't have any codes right now. So it's basically just like living in the county. We abide by the county codes or the state codes. We don't have a city codes. So these are just things, you know, you're developing a city from scratch, or you're taking on Chattanooga's previous burden and stuff.
The mayor tried to say like the very next week after they said no, they would not reopen, that he said that next week I will have it reopened.
Yeah, he did say that. He said that he was going to get it reopened again. So, I mean, there's aspirations by the current administration, and a lot of people that are here say, oh, well, once this mayor's gone, we don't have to worry about it. Have you looked at the candidates for the next mayor? You know, we don't have any control over who's elected in the city of Chattanooga. So whatever happens down there, it's between the city council and Chattanooga. And just to give you an idea of why they're so motivated for this area, they're $400 million in the hole. And I've been told there's another $300 million coming due on them. So they need money from somewhere. And they're looking outside of their area to go get that money. I mean, that's why they're so interested in what we're doing up here. And when it comes to zoning and planning, every time somebody does something, you know, City of Chattanooga, you know, they're going to do the zoning downtown. And is everybody up here going to drive all the way downtown to the zoning board to fight it at City Council? And I'll tell you some of the tactics they use, because they used them on us last year in Hunter Road. Basically, they'll say, everybody will come in, and they'll go, we're going to defer this to the next meeting. So the next time, you try to gather everybody together, you go down there, not as many people. No, we're going to defer this to the next meeting. So they keep deferring it until it gets smaller and smaller. There was an ordinance that actually came through, one of the residents of the city of Chattanooga told me about, that they tried to pass at like 12 midnight because they wanted to be able to govern the kind of plants you put in your yard. Because they had some people that had wildflower areas in their property and they didn't like them. And so they wanted to put this ordinance in place, and they figured if they did it late at night, nobody would be there to contest it. They got wind of it and showed up with like 100 people in the thing and basically got it turned down. So these are the kind of things that we may have to contend with if the city of Chattanooga comes in. I just think having local government, local taxes, everything flowing back to our community is a better solution than going all downtown. Other questions?
A lot of people here saying different things. Could I address them about?
Sure. Oh, absolutely, Mike.
Guys, I'm sorry I've been fighting crowds, so I'll stay away from the park. My name's Mike Carter, and I've been a lawyer here for, I guess, since 1980 is when I moved back. I was born and raised in Louisville, and practiced law until 1997, and was appointed a General Sessions Court judge in 97, and stayed there until 05 until I had memorized the name of everyone coming before me. And when I would give them time in prison, I would pass them on the way home, and they got home before I did. It became incredibly frustrating from a country boy from Louisville, and so I left, went into some other things. My most recent position was Special Assistant to County Mayor Paul Ramsey, where my job was to stop annexation. And do too good, yeah. Let me tell you what we did. Number one, I, along with Bobby Wood, and Bobby, correct me if I'm wrong, but you fought annexation through legislation for 28 years. And you all know that he filed 14 bills. He filed them every other year. And correct me, Bobby, a legislative session lasts 2 years. And so there's 2-year implementation of statutes. Bobby filed 14 times to give you the right to vote whether you want to be in the city of Chattanooga or not. It never once got out of committee. They would send it to a committee that had no members, but they would send it to a committee who wouldn't vote to bring it up. Bobby would go and make pleas every year. Never once did it come out. Why do I bring that up? Because since then, and I don't care if you're a Democrat or Republican, we're talking tonight about whether you want to be in the city or not be in the city. The Republicans now control the state house, right? Small government, right? Less government, right? They hold the House, they own the Senate, and they own the governor. And let me assure you, the vice governor, in Tennessee we call him the deputy governor, is Claude Ramsey, who hired me to stop annexation. I know where his heart is, and I think you all know. So there has never been a better time to pass Bobby's law, maybe we ought to call it that, Bobby, to pass Bobby's law than next session, right?
Now, if you pass a law that says they can't come out and get you unless you vote to be in the city, if you want to be in the city, God bless you. That doesn't bother me a bit. I don't want it. And in 2000, when the urban growth plan went in, I was in the county government. I was a judge. So they called me and said, where do you want to be? I said, I don't want to be anywhere. They said, well, you got to be in either Chattanooga or Collegeville. So what I choose, Collegeville, because the taxes are 21% in Chattanooga. Now I'm next to the last house in Collegedale. They haven't come to get me. I've said all that to say this. I don't want any more government. I'm sick of government. We got more government than authority to stand name. But when I met with these two gentlemen, and let me tell you, I went to the meeting to explain to them why I didn't think I could support it. Very quickly, it started dawning on me, oh, wait a minute, they're right. They're right. In 1983, David Copeland, you all remember him? A great state legislator. We had him and Bobby. We had a lot of clout. The problem is they were in the minority. The Democrats controlled. Do you remember when David Copeland tried to incorporate the city of Louisville? Y'all remember that in 1982 or 3? Well, I was the lawyer that did it. How far did we get? This far. You know why? Because y'all told us you're crazy. I had a lady at my church, my 5th grade school teacher. Said, Carter, you're just trying to build a kingdom for you to rule. I said, Ms. Monroe, I don't want to rule any kingdom. I just don't be in the city of Chattanooga. Well, they'll never come out here. I said, Ms. Monroe, the reason we're doing this is they've annexed the road down to the summit and they've taken over the landfill. You remember that? First case in America approved where a city annexed only the road. Did you know that? That's how they went from downtown to college, or to summit. They went out the road and then took the summit done. So that's how Chattanooga got out of it. David Copeland, who was a master in finance, called me one night and said, Mike, they're coming to get us. We've got to do something. So David and Bobby were in the legislature then, and we found a loophole in the sales tax law. And at that time, you got sales tax immediately. And at that time, you didn't have to provide certain services that you now do. So we formed a charter and asked people to vote that said we could not impose taxes on city and land. That had a rule we could never tax our constituents. Now that's crazy, isn't it? Well, how are we going to survive? We got all the sales tax. Then, well, even my school teacher wouldn't vote for it. And so we lost. What happened the next year? Democrats changed the rules. Now they're having to deal with it. You see what I'm saying? I don't want to say insidious because that sounds worse than it is. But guys, let me tell you. The first meeting I had as special assistant to County Mayor Claude Ramsey was to meet with Ron Little. And whether you like him or don't, let me tell you, he's one of the most personable men you ever met in your life. Good guy. If you meet him at a party, you're going to like him. If you sit in the chair I sit in, you're not going to like him. Claude appointed me to represent the Water and Wastewater Treatment Authority. That's the Hamilton County Sewer Authority. You all have heard of it because they wanted to build a plant over there. And so Phil Smart, the previous lawyer, and the previous head of the WWTA wanted to grow dramatically. Government always does that. You know, freedom is too important to trust politicians. Government always grows. It's in its DNA. It can't stop itself. Well, I went down, and Claude said, Mike, is there anything you can figure out to stop this? And I said, Claude, I don't have any idea. So I go down to the county attorney's office, and they bring me this urban growth plan. Well, it took 2.5 years to find hundreds of people involved, and I sit down and start reading it. And I come to a provision in it. And it says this: if the county water and wastewater treatment authority gives away to the city the areas for sewering located in the annexed areas, the city must sewer every home within 3 years. Well, they've annexed areas 30 years ago they had a sewer. So I go running up to see Claude. And I lay it on his desk. I said, Claude, look right here. And I read it to him. And Claude said, no, that's not what it means. I said, Claude, I don't care what it means or what it says. You think this is what it says. Well, we went and I started tracking down who is the lawyer that drew this paragraph. And it turned out to be a young lady in Chattanooga who volunteered to serve on the board, and I found her. Her name was Chantel Robertson. And when I went to Chantel, I read it to her, and she said, I know exactly what you're going to ask me. I said, what's that? She said, if the Water and Wastewater Treatment Authority sees that area, the city has to sewer it within 3 years, or every homeowner can send a letter to the mayor, and you're automatically out of the city. That looked pretty good. So we did. So Phil Smart, the new head of the WWTA, and I go and meet with the mayor, and my first meeting with him, and I know you know it, Bud, you like it. I'll talk about it when you see him. But maybe just a little bit. And so I said, Mayor, I'm here for the WWTA. I've got this formal declaration that was passed yesterday in our meeting. We're giving you all the areas you're taking. He said, Mike, you can't do that. That would stop annexation. I said, Mayor, we've already done it. There it is. He said, Mike, you're wrong. I said, you know, I was a judge 9 years. I got told that every day. That's my fault. So there you are. God bless you. Good luck. Well, he called Claude and said that I was a little too abrupt with him, and he didn't appreciate it. So I told him I'd be nicer. Here's the problem. City lawyer calls me, and I've known him for 100 years, and respect him, and we're good friends. He said, Mike, you got this all wrong. I said, well, Mike, you read it and tell me where I'm wrong. And he read it and said, dear God, somebody's changed the language. I said, Mike, I don't know what you meant to put in here, but I only know what everyone signed. Now, why have I told you that story? When Dave and I tried to incorporate the city of Boudreaux, we had a new plan. We could do exactly what these two guys wanted to do, create a city without tax. I'm one of the people bursted their bubble because the legislature changed it. The Tennessee Municipal League owned, at that time, the legislature. Is that right, Bob? That's correct. I was told by Beth Harwell, the Speaker of the House, 2 weeks ago in Nashville, the second most powerful lobby, second only to Jack Daniels. That's pretty strong. Now, why am I telling you all this? Because since then, Democrats have lost control of the House. Republicans control the House. They want to run for less government. We need to see if they are for less government. Now, I've said all that to say this. When I met with these guys, it dawned on me. Now, I'm thinking, I don't care how we stop the city of Chattanooga. I don't care whether it's Bobby's Law or if we can trick them through sewer requirements, plan. The city of Chattanooga, a guy called me when this hit the paper when I was with Claude, and he had lived in the city 33 years and had never gotten his sewer. By the plan they published then, they agreed to try to have it done within 36 months. So if a law simply passed requiring them to do that, they would stop. I forgot to tell you this. I don't know whether you all noticed when they were annexing all the areas, one of the areas that they were going to annex was, what's the big subdivision now on East Martin Road?
Hurricane Creek.
No, the big bridge. Mountain Shadows. It used to be big. I don't know where it is. It was when I was born. Do you know that the next day they de-annexed it? You know what? All of the money they would have collected and all the annexations would have sewered that one subdivision after 17 years of time. So we made it economically impossible for them to do it. Now, why have I told you that? I don't want another city. Don't want another layer of government. Just being honest with you. But as I'm thinking, if I get in the legislature or somebody gets up there that will listen to this, how are we going to stop it? I'd like to have a law requiring a referendum. But if I can't get that, then I want a law changing the urban growth plan to make it applicable and more restrictive. Also, make it economically ridiculous for the tenant. I want to stop it. I want a statute. I just want to stop. One of the things you can do in Tennessee is the Tennessee Constitution says you cannot have a law that only applies to certain people. And we pass them every day. And we call them private acts. And they're held to be constitutional. What does that mean? What that means is the legislature could pass a law requiring annexation referendum only for Hamilton County. I don't have to fight Memphis, going to fight Nashville, Knoxville, Johnson City. See, you start taking away your opposition. Why would Memphis care if Hamilton County, if the city of Chattanooga and Collegedale and every other city, if they had to have referendum annexation?
And to Mike's point on Memphis, they actually put a local referendum in, their city did, that said you can't create a new city close to Memphis within 10 miles versus 5.
And that's what Littlefield will do. I met with Littlefield after this, and he did discover that we were right. They had to sewer those places within 3 years. As recently as 2 committee meetings ago, one of the people said, and I don't know who she was, but she claims she had talked to me, and that's very possible. She said, I talked to a guy named Mike Carter, claims as a lawyer, claimed to work for the WWTA. He says, we have to sewer that within 3 years. We can't do that. You know what the mayor said to her in the open meeting? He doesn't know what she's doing. Well, I've been accused of that a lot, so that doesn't bother me. But let me tell you something, his lawyer knows their influence. So don't worry about the politicians, we need to worry about the judges. So I'm interested in defeating the city of Chattanooga any way I can. I was born and raised in Columbia City. Given the choice, I went into Collegedale as opposed to Chattanooga. Don't want to be in either. Now, when I was meeting these guys, I was stunned at the amount of research they had done. They have done the right thing. I suggested to them that if the legislature passed a law requiring annexation by referendum, would they abolish the city of Hamilton? And they said, yeah, we'll put that in the charter. Well, why would that, looking from a legislative viewpoint, if I propose that bill, why would I want the city of Hamilton? Because if the city of Hamilton is on the ballot, and it passes, the city of Chattanooga is already lost. You follow? There's going to be a city. Why then would they not agree to allow that annexed area to require a referendum? At least they've been got a shot at it. If you all start to say crazy, if you all are intelligent to vote and go in the city of Chattanooga, then you're good. But if you don't, you won't. So you see how I'm playing poker with them? Does that make sense?
And just to give you an idea, this has been, I'm not kidding when I say this has been a game of Stratego, because we have found things during the process that the city was doing that we were just like, we can't do that. And we've had the Attorney General of the state of Tennessee making rulings and clarifying rulings that the city of Chattanooga was going to try to use from like 10 years ago to say, no, they can't do it this way. So we're always looking out to see what the next thing and next move. I had an event that came through recently. We had a notice where they annexed a piece of property, AA, and right off the interstate in Udawa. Where I got the notice was from North Africa, off the newswire, before it ever hit the Times Free Press in the area. And I immediately forwarded out to the Udawa Citizen Responsible Growth and HCRA and said, hey, this reading's coming up, and they did it during the holidays, so thinking nobody would show up and pay attention to it. We're annexing this property. And it caused a firestorm before it ever really hit the press locally.
Let me tell you what we've gone through. In 82 or 83 in Austin, which we literally tried out for the city of Louisville. And that fell miserably. We came back, and the same school teacher that thought I wanted to be the mayor of Udawa or something, came to me and said, let's form the city of Udawa as a Cherokee nation. Did you all know that was attempted? Yeah, I chased that rabbit for about 2 weeks. And let me tell you what killed that. I was joking with Ms. Monroe, God bless her, she was a wonderful lady, some of you may have known her. I said, at church one day, I said, well, Ms. Monroe, looks like we're going to make it as a Cherokee nation. Do you want to park cars or roll dice? And I said it as a joke. And she looked at me and she said, oh my goodness, could they have a casino? I said, yes, ma'am. And we'd already run into that. Guys, that killed that. Number two, I don't think we had enough legal connection to prove it. Dalton Roberts heard about this and called me over to his office. He was the county executive at the time. And he and I began to discuss what we've been lucky. We've had Dalton Roberts, who was 100% against annexation in any area. We've had Claude Ramsey, who's done the same. So Dalton called me in and he said, if you can figure out a way to stop the city, I'm going to let you do it. And I said, well, okay. And he said, you're crazy enough to do it. You don't care who gets mad at you. I said, well, that's probably true. So we came up with a Home Rule Charter Study Commission. How many of you all remember that? 1992? I think it was 19, not a soul in here remembers it. Well, I spent 9 months of my life battling with that. What home rule for a county is, home rule for a county lets a county develop laws. Hamilton County cannot pass any law. Are you aware of that? If you get caught speeding going out here tonight, what law have you violated? County law? No, the county can't pass a law. You violate a state law. If the city of Hamilton is formed, you'll be violating a city's law, and that $100 fine goes to the city, not to the state. The millions and millions of dollars I levied fines as a judge for Hamilton County, $2 of each one of those judgments stayed in Hamilton County, the rest went to the state. Y'all aware of that? Now, if we had passed the Home Rule Charter Study Commission, all that would change. It gave Hamilton County the right to pass laws just like the city. So every law, or every stop sign, every yield sign, every speed limit you saw out there would be Hamilton County's via home rule. Does that make sense to you? Does that not make perfect sense to you? To keep that money here, same government, no extra level of government. You're just not sending all your money back, but you get to keep it here. In doing that, I talked to a brilliant lawyer. I think he was in St. Louis, I believe it was. I don't know how I called up with him. I read a case. He gave me his name and I called him. Well, he was really a smart guy. I told him what my problem was, and he said, have you ever thought about incorporating the county under the charter? I said, do what? He said, make it the city. So I read the law, and boy, there's tricky little ways I could do that. Change a few little words. And so I go to Dalton Roberts. You've been in there all many times. I laid the book down. I said, Dalton, if you want to do this, here's how we're going to do it. We're going to make Hamilton County the city. He's not going to do this. I said, oh, Dalton right there is what we're going to do. He said, good Lord, son. He always called me son. Good Lord, stop. Well, this is genius. Let's do it. The county spent $50,000. We had 13 members. We drew a charter that no one in America understood. I got calls as late as last year from a lawyer in Arizona. You know why I drew such a stupid charter? And I said, one day what I was trying to do. Well, think about it. Everyone in Hamilton County gets to vote on home rule. City of Chattanooga, Lakeside, Soddy. If you live in the county, you get a vote. Well, I really couldn't go on television and tell them I was triggered. And so we just tried to claim it was home rule and it was right there. Keep your money here, don't add it. No, and it failed miserably. It failed miserably. So, anyway, I've been at this since 1982. And if you don't do something, they're coming in. I was in Littlephill's office and he said, Mike, listen to me. You're the only one that can bring metro government to Hamilton County. And I said, did I? Did you just say, bring metro government to Hamilton County? He said, I did. I said, that ain't happening. That's not happening. I am 100% public. Why? I said, well, why isn't it everywhere? It's a good idea. Why isn't it everywhere? It adds to government. It doesn't detract from it. I took him a picture of the city of Louisville where 2 people were sitting at the same desk after they had their metro government. They didn't lay one person off. And the mayor, who was a smart lawyer and started with a really great concept of reducing government, ended up with double the government. And he said, well, as I figured, in 24 years, those people will retire and will be down what a little bit. And I thought, God, if I'm going to be for a while, I didn't say anything. So, let me say this. If the legislature is confronted with a multitude of bills to try and stop, basically, Chattanooga, that it will affect every municipality in Hamilton County, this is going to help get it done. So I'm for it. I don't live in it. I'm not taxing myself. I live in Collegedale, and when they come get me, I'll pay. I don't know what that road is. It's a little higher. Well, it's going to be 21% of Chattanooga, so I'm saving 79% regardless. But that's my choice, and that's the decision that I made. But what I do want to tell you is this. I honestly believe, and I would require if it were me, I would want some in that charter to say if annexation of us becomes only available through referendum, then we don't need the city council. But I say to you in all seriousness, the work they've done is second to no one. You couldn't have hired lawyers and paid $1 million and got the kind of work you got out of these two gentlemen. This will really help get a bill through the legislature, in my opinion. Bobby, what do you say? I do. Now, Bobby's filed 14 bills and lost every one of them. But since then, the Republicans control those committees. And somebody needs to go up there and say, well, no, wait a minute. Are we Republicans? Are we for less government? Are we? Well, okay, here's the deal. Think about it. The citizens of Chattanooga that incorporated the city of Chattanooga got to vote if they wanted to be in it, right? They formed it. They got to vote. I don't know when that was, 18 something? Pretty sure you got a great
Yeah, it was like 170 years ago. Oh,
okay.
No, that was Tennessee, I think.
Those people voted to form the city. They voted to put themselves in. Every person taken since then has not had that right. Yeah. Now, Chris has said one thing maybe I misunderstood. I won't disagree with you. I don't know that we've ever had annexation by referendum happen. No. And I think he said it went away in 1998. It was not there in 83.
I may have misstated that. I was saying that the law changed after 170 years in the state of Tennessee.
Well, the TML is a powerful thing. When I was with Speaker Harwell a couple of weeks, I still go to the judges' conventions because I still set retired judges to do that. And she came and I was speaking to her about this issue. And I said, I know that the TML is the most powerful lobby, second only to Jack Daniels. And she said, Mike, I don't want to talk a lot about it, but let me say this, the TML has lost a lot of steam. Something happened last year, and I don't know what that was. But she said, they're not the powerhouse they once were. And I said, well, Madam Speaker, let me tell you where I'm coming from. I've been battling the city of Chattanooga all these years, went to work for Claude, who is now, she works with him daily. Oh, Claude's against annexation? You doggone right he is. You call him and ask him. I got a call 2 days later from him saying, boy, he is against it. So when you got the governor, or let's say the governor's office, the governor's right-hand man is from here, agrees with us 100%, a Republican Senate, and you've got a guy running from the state Senate for this new district named Greg Biden, who has fought annexation all his life. And you got a Republican House. If we can't get a referendum bill passed, Bobby's bill, as I jokingly call it, if we can't get that passed, then some Republicans need to be sent home. So, I had a good friend of mine whom I really respect call me the other day and say, I'm 100% against this city Hamilton, and I'm going to be up there jumping up and down screaming and cussing against it. And I said, well, brother, let me just tell you why I'm for it. And so I went through about an hour with him. He could not be here tonight, but he said, wow, I didn't understand. And I'm going to help those guys everywhere I can. So we're not trying to get another level of government. We're trying to stop the city of Chattanooga. Does that make sense? And my support for the city of Hamilton is I think it's going to help you get Chattanooga stopped once and for all.
And just to give an idea along this line, Chattanooga annexed, I think it was Elder Mountain, and basically it was like 8 homes or 9 homes up there, and recently realized it was costing them more money than they were actually collecting. So they de-annexed. But here's what they didn't do. They didn't provide them any services for the amount of time that they were in the city of Chattanooga. But all those residents paid taxes to Chattanooga for the amount that they're owed. But Chattanooga didn't give them the money back once they de-annexed the area. So the same thing is in Ooltewah right now. We've actually shown in the Ooltewah exhibit, the state says you cannot annex just commercial property for the tax dollars, which is a monstrosity. Annexation is against the law. And if we can persuade the businesses all along the exit to challenge it, they potentially could kick Chattanooga out of the whole Ooltewah area because they haven't provided the services, not even a garbage can, according to one business owner in the last 9 years.
Business is never been gone. The city doesn't provide business. See, when the city of Collegedale took their business on, they said, well, my gosh, how much are you paying for your garbage service every month? And I told them, and they said, well, your taxes not be much more than that. I said, fine, put me in the city of Collegedale. How much garbage do I have to pick up? None. They voted the next meeting not to provide business. So they called me and asked me if I would come down a week to meet with them because they heard I had some radical ideas against annexation. And they wanted to talk to me before I stirred up any more trouble. So we're not going to stir up trouble. I just believe if you're going to be taxed, you should be able to vote for the people who's taxed. If you want to go in, God bless you. I don't care if you vote yourself $1,000 a day tax. It doesn't matter. You're grown people do what you're going to do. But I want the right to determine on the future. Yes, ma'am.
I was told, and I don't know how accurate it is, but you should know, when James County bankrupt and Bradley and Meigs and Hamilton took it over, they were so poor that they did not survey, and it's a loosey-goosey line that nobody's really quite sure. And I'm 2 blocks inside Meigs County, and where I am, she said, probably you're supposed to be in Meigs County, but we're making too much money off you, and we ain't gonna turn you loose.
I did have a situation where I was working with Claude about whether a house was in Bradley or Hamilton. Nobody knows. Nobody knows. And what happened is we agreed to split the house 50-50. So the guy sleeps in Bradley County. Y'all are laughing. I tell you his name. You might know him pretty well. His wife served him with divorce papers. And he ran to the bedroom and said, I'm in Bradley County. and wanted to call me as a witness to the defendant. I don't know what we like to deal like that. But you're exactly right. No one really knows. Let me add this final thing to try and prove to you that we've had quite a bit of experience in trying to stop Chattanooga. We even, I think it was 88 or 89, came up with the idea of re-resurrecting James County. And we did some research on doing that because I grew up playing in the old James County Courthouse and I lived 3 houses from it. And so we looked at that and my recollection on that was Chris's idea to resurrect James County. So I've already been down that road. My memory is not fresh, but my memory is that requires a constitutional amendment. The Tennessee Constitution requires approval of all the counties. And you get Lake County or Dyer County to say no, it's not happening. So we couldn't get the Indians, we couldn't get James County back. Our teacher didn't want to mix drinks and park cars, and so we couldn't get, I don't think we would have gotten anywhere. We've done about everything we did. But let me just end this. When Littleville said to me, you're the only man in Hamilton County can bring metro government to the county, I was stunned. I couldn't imagine why anybody would think that way. How can that seem so stupid to me and so realistic to him? I said, Mayor, we're just never going to do that. That's not happening. And if you will just go on the radio and say you want metro government, that'll be the best thing that happened. He did it the next morning. So that killed any chance of consolidating offices and trying to do that. One of the things that I did with Claude was, the mayor's always talking about consolidating offices to save money. Well, that was my job. Will it save money? No, it wouldn't. It didn't make any sense in time. You don't put a plumber with an electrician and consolidate the truck. Neither one's going to have one. They're going to have half one. It didn't make any sense. And so that's why we stopped that, or at least tried to. I've said all that to say that Littleville said, we are going to take over the county, or the county's going to take over us. So if you think he's not coming, when people in Ooltewah in 83, 84 said we were trying to build a kingdom to rule because in the world in the city of Chattanooga are going to rule. By golly, they're out there now, aren't they? And if you incorporate on the growth plan, you don't get any tax for 10 years. So if you go down and say Walmart, it's in college. Walmart's in college. If it weren't unincorporated area, you got it. Can't get any tax for 10 years. So the laws are drawn as much for the cities and against the rural areas as is humanly possible. But if the Republicans who believe in less government and more fair government can't change that, then they will ought to change the Republicans. And I am one, so I'm not talking about, I'm Baptist, so I talk about Baptist, and I'm Republican, so I talk about Republican. All right? But this man right here, and I don't know, certainly is one of the greatest public officials I've ever tried for 28 years to get this done and never got it out of committee. But there's nothing in the world wrong with his bill. We've ordered it up now, and it'll be the first bill that we put in next year. In fact, they go in and start in December. They have to be in by January the 4th. October? Can you pre-file them in October?
No, they'll start back in January. Bills have to all be in probably in February.
Okay. So it's going to get started again. You all need to watch it. And remember, your freedom is not worth being left up to politicians. You got to get involved. You got to write people. If we get this bill started, we need people to start writing and calling and making a scene. These guys have done more with less than you've ever seen in your life. Have you seen the video of Mayor Littlefield talking to them? And we go home and bring that up on their website and read it. You'll get a 100% vote for annexation. Or incorporation.
Incorporation. It's very, the media didn't cover the air of the room. There was over 100 people in the room. And we had a great production team over here that basically captured the entire event. So we put it out for everybody to see, and everybody that saw it came back and was like, whoa. Yeah, friendsofhamilton.org. We're also on Facebook, and we put everything from the media that puts out, what we put out, everything out. We answer questions regularly on the Facebook site. So we answered a couple of questions the last day about the pocket section out there and people that were on the fence and why would they be interested, and we just explained the laws and how we got here, and they were like, oh, now it makes sense to me. So well, there's so many moving parts that until you start looking at it, you don't
think about it. No one wants another level to go. It's all, if we have to choose between two evils, we want the lesser of two evils. But this evil, for lack of a better term, may really help us get a permanent cure that is not choosing between two evils, but just correcting the long time wrong. And so I'm for it for that limited reason. Yes, sir.
I just want to interject real quick. How thin you're talking about running this whole town, we do this for free. We're not being paid for any of this. I just want to let everybody know. I live in Saudi Daisy, right near Lakeside. I saw what was happening. We don't get the benefit of a purple rhino in my area either. They get it downtown, they're paying $32,000 for it. I don't want to be part of the city of Chattanooga. Y'all have a great deal going on here, and I felt like it was something that we needed to take care of. Just to know they don't have money to be spending on a production company. We're doing it out of the goodness of our heart.
Yeah,
because
that's
we
the way
feel like that's something that y'all need to know what's going on in these meetings.
And that's the way our whole board is. I mean, we have 15 people on our board that are made up of emergency services, our water company, electric. I mean, across the board are people in this local community who look at what's going on. I mean, there's so many other conversations independent of our city, what they're trying to do with our water supplies and other things too. So it's basically, I mean, it's like a game of Stratego. And if you're not looking over here, something's going on over there. And luckily, we've got enough people in key places that are watching all these other places.
And that's what I want to do with it. Get so many things started that one of them works. Yeah. And the private act, in my opinion, has the best opportunity to pass it. Because it will only apply to Hamilton County. So I like fight Shelby, Ox. I like fight all those people. And what happens is the legislature passes it. Bobby, you voted on 1,000. Generally, if the people of Hamilton County want it, the people of Shelby County gives you their vote, right? So you'll give them theirs on their private act. They don't care. But a private act is not made a deal until it comes back to Hamilton County and is approved by the county commission. Once the county commission adopts that bill by a 2/3 or more majority, then it is a law of the state, applicable only to Hamilton County. And so I don't want to get all the TML stirred up. You follow me? I want to fight the fewest enemy I can fight. Now, if this is about to become a reality, the city of Chattanooga has already lost, right? They're through. These guys beat them, and I tried to beat them for years, didn't get it done, they've done it.
On the private act, you got to the population.
That's, yeah, you don't say it only applies to Hamilton County, you say it applies to every county in the state that has a population between 356,364 and 367,365. Well, there's only one county that does that. So, but if we can go to the city of Chattanooga, whoever the mayor will be, and I like Andy Burke. He practiced for me when I was a judge. He's a fine family man. He's a brilliant lawyer. He's a good guy. He won't lie to you. He shoots you straight. And I'll tell him if he said it. I guess you know him. He's more liberal. He's the most liberal person I know in the world. Obama thinks he's too liberal. So that's, unless the Republicans come up with a really strong person, he's going to be your next mayor. And when he goes in, $400-something thousand in the hole, That's true. They owe $880 million. You aware of that? City of Chattanooga owes $880 million. Now, to their defense, some of those bonds are revenue producing. They pay for themselves. So you got about 450 that's not being paid for, that has to be paid for by taxes. Now, this lady right here been smiling, shaking her head yes all the time. If she gets elected the mayor of the city of Chattanooga next time, and she sits down with her financial people, they're going to say, unless you annex, you're going bankrupt. What's she going to do? She's going to be the mayor that bankrupts the city of Chattanooga? No. She's going to annex.
Just to give you some other financials too.
Going to annex. It's their only answer. When you wonder why they do it, if Bud was the mayor, he'd do it. And Bud rather have his arm cut off than annex. But if you take the job, you got to do the job. And the job is they've got to have more money. They've just gone through the largest tax increase in the history of Chattanooga, and it will keep them going for about 28 or 29 months, and then they're back negative. So, guys, it's coming.
And it's coming. And to give another point that they have.
Please believe.
It takes 30 police officers, new hires, to make up for one retiring police officer in the city of Chattanooga because of the way the pensions are structured. And that was reported in the Times Free Press just recently. So you can see the math doesn't work. I mean,
I've got a guy that's a good friend of mine, retired from the city, and he had a heart attack. I was with him when he had it. He took him to the hospital, and everything he had, all his medications, everything that happened to him, paid 100%. He's been retired 17 years. Now, how many of you have a pension plan? But how many workers? You got a pension plan like that, huh? No, you can't afford it. You wish. But now, guys, and I've been a public servant. I don't have any problems with that. I like it. I appreciate the job they do, and Hamilton County's got a lot of great ones. But they don't need to be paid much better than the average person. It's true. And that's where it's got to, guys. That's where it's got to. So, I said all that to say.
Yes, sir.
How many do you plan to have in this area?
So we're not going to change the number we already have in the area, and I think the county.
Could you change the officers?
Oh, yeah, you mean get different officers in the area? Like the
We don't have any.
Okay.
They stay down at the Golden Gallon and 15 Highway.
We can talk to somebody about that. We've got, what I was told is we have 5 officers that are on duty at any given time and 4 shifts.
But, for instance, this is neither here or there. Either 2 Saturday nights ago or 3. In this area, there was probably 30 mailboxes destroyed, stop signs and things destroyed. And people have made the reports on it, and as far as I know, no one's heard anything back.
Well, I'll send an email and talk to them and see if they've got anything going on. I'll bring that up, because they were supposed to be here tonight too.
Just to back him up, that's true.
They got a Parker Loop over there.
If they'd started his mailbox and been running down Highway 58, 56 miles an hour, they'd been pulled over. But everyone here knows a lot of people in this county, and you get away with murder as long as you walk. But if you drive down the road, you won't get caught. That's true.
But I got to keep us safe.
Birchwood historically is that.
I had a question about your comment. You said, now you can pass this referendum if you do this in November. And then I think, Mike, you said you're going to try to introduce this legislation
January.
December, January.
Now, it won't come up to vote probably until March or April, and could very easily have to go to the next session, which would be January of 14 would be its first full session. So that's why it's critical to get something done.
Yeah.
Well, this is the question. If you pass this referendum and then you pass this legislation, is there a process to rescind the city of Hamilton?
It's all in the charter.
And that's what we were talking about. He was asking me, in the charter, if this happens, can we shut the city down? And I told Mike, I said, yes. The only thing I want to make sure is that we have some kind of trigger or event that if the city goes away, they can't find a loophole in another Democratic administration to come back and take it again. So we want to make sure whatever we put in place is an insurance policy for us. That we've locked them out indefinitely is what it comes down to. And ideally, no city, that would be the best thing.
The urban growth plan is right open, and it got stopped primarily because of these guys, and that's a great thing. The urban growth plan means that they cannot move the city of Chattanooga any further without amending it until 2020. So you got 8 years, and that sounds like all the time in the world. To a lawyer, that's one case. You follow? So if it takes till 14 to get the bill actually under consideration, it could pass that summer and be enacted by 14 or 15. But see, we just keep easing toward 2020. And with the new mayor, you may get a new county mayor. You may get all kind of things happening. And once that growth plan gets open, guys, we're done.
We're in deep trouble.
It's over.
Because here's what happens. If the growth plan opens and they move that boundary line, that's the reason we're at Main Gap Road right now. It's because they 2 miles up the interstate. If we had that 2 miles back, we could move that line further south into Ooltewah. But if they open that plan and they move that line forward, or if Cleveland, which is not even in our legislative area at all, I mean in Hamilton County, if Bradley County says, hey, let's rush to the county line as fast as we can, then we've got a whole different issue with the city. So they can chip us, if the Cleveland mayor, the Chattanooga mayor make a deal, they can potentially chip us away.
Let me mention one other thing. I had a call about 4 weeks ago about something about to happen. I'm really interested in out at Ooltewah, Collegedale. Do anybody from down there know the old Fox Farm? You know where the dump is? Where they closed the dump, built the Summit ball field? Y'all know where that is? Well, that's where I live in Canada. This company in Canada has purchased 1,100 acres there. Y'all aware of that? You know that they're under construction of 750 apartments there?
On the dump?
No, next to it. No, it's a good 300 feet long. Oh, yeah, no problem with that. It's been capped. Let me tell you what's going to happen. And they told me to dare not tell us. Bobby and I were in a meeting Friday, and they were talking about it just like it wasn't anything. So I'm not revealing it out now. The economic center of Chattanooga is about to shift. Now they say it's the mall area. Guys, it ain't going to be the mall area. It's going to be the Collegedale Volkswagen area. And it's going to be amazing. I have seen the drawings, and it's absolutely amazing. I don't know, you'd probably go to Franklin. I'm thinking of some fancy shopping area. You'd have to go to some really nice place in Tennessee to beat what's coming to college. Now my problem is I live 2 miles from there, and I don't want to be there. I don't want to, because I'm going to be right downtown. I don't want to be right there. So that's my problem. If you all got a little farm up here for sale, see me after this. But we're going to have to do something. When that shifts, when you move the economic city, the center of Chattanooga down there, Chattanooga and Collegedale, I was in that meeting where they were arguing over who was going to get to control all that development. So the city of Chattanooga has got to jump. Because when all of that moves to Collegedale, and you've got the economic center now, what, 23 miles from downtown, what I think of downtown Chattanooga, you put that economic center at the Volkswagen exit, guys, it's over now.
And the mayor's already been measuring the billboards that
yes, ma'am.
That Collegedale put up.
Yes, ma'am. We'll take them down because he don't like it. It violates the
city code.
Well, yeah, but oddly enough, they don't violate it.
What I want to do.
But please listen and don't react to this. Let's think proactively, and let's don't think like the last 3 times. I may be giving you all a kiss today, but the last 3 times I've tried to do something, I've failed. It's time to succeed. I'm getting a little longer too to keep losing. So you all think about this, and these guys do have the right attitude. They're doing it the right way.
And I'd like to thank Mike and Bobby both for all their contribution in this effort. And we have a video recently of Bobby on our website that it's worth just taking a look at. He talks a little bit more about what's going on, what's happening, and what we need to do as a community. I know it's getting on further on time, And so if you have any additional questions, we ask you can either come to us afterwards and ask the questions. We're going to take the raw video, we're going to put it on our website out there with the other videos we got. You'll be able to ask additional questions out there or on Facebook, and we'll answer and get those questions answered. I'm trying to think if there's anything else we need to cover.
Or if you have no internet access, if you'd like to write your question on these postcards and give us your address or maybe a phone number where we can contact you and follow up, we'll be happy to follow up with those questions. This was a meeting whose purpose was to get your input and your feedback on our initial plans. So we'd like to maintain kind of an ongoing dialogue until you're satisfied with all the answers.
And we highly recommend everybody here, tell your friends, your family, your neighbors, if you haven't signed the petition, please sign the petition.
Where can we get a blank?
Well, what we have to do is we've got them at 6 locations, holders, I'm trying to remember all of them. Yeah, she can tell you.
Carter Shooting Supply.
Carter Shooting, Midnight Oil, and
Fresh Fitness.
Fresh Fitness, the gymnastics place.
Savannah Valley and Volunteer Electric.
The Volunteer Electric. You need to get one down to Ware Branch Market.
Where?
You need to get one down to Ware Branch Market.
Ware Branch Market? Well, we'll talk to them. We'll add them to our list, make sure we can.
We have a petition right here on the table.
We need somebody to certify. We need somebody to watch it.
Are the locations listed on your website?
We have our petitions have to be certified. One person has to watch that entire petition so we can notarize it.
I'll do that.
If it's our school board and you guys, I know that we've had kind of mixed signals from churches and schools for political reasons and stuff, but we would be happy to have the petition up here in the school. But we have to have one person who's owning that petition, their name's on it, and anybody that signs it, they say, I saw everybody sign it. That's the thing they did. That's another one of these obstacles they put up for anybody incorporating. Any other petition, you just have somebody kind of sign and walk away. These petitions, we have to have one person watch everybody sign, and the notary notarizes that person's witness to everybody on that petition. Yep. Not the person who signed it, the person who's holding that petition. Yeah, the director name on the top of it and say, I want you to sign all these things. So, if there are any other questions, please ask us. There's a number of board members around. You can ask any of us over here on this side, a couple here, and then they'll answer any questions you have on anything, related to the incorporation or anything else.
Thank you so much for coming.
We appreciate it.